tell us. But I mean, my understanding is that you were in the hair care industry and you were watching people get cancer from the chemicals in the hair care products. And so that's what kind of initially got you into creating these chemical-free products. And, you know, for what I see is like, okay, you've got meat and you've got vegetables, you've got fruit, you've got nuts, and you've got all kinds of different whole foods that have been traditionally used for forever. But 95% of the food, you know, is not only processed, that's one thing, but then chemicalized. And we're talking about the chemicals in medicine. We're talking about the chemicals in beauty products. We're talking about the chemicals in food. We're talking about the chemicals in industry. And what I see, you know, we're all arguing about diets and foods and things like that, which is more of a matter of opinion. And we're overlooking some of the basic underlying essential reasons why people are sick. And I think that it's because, you know, there's so many chemicals in so many different forms coming at us in so many different directions that my underlying, you know, issue or task is to help people to understand where these chemicals are coming from, how they can avoid them, and then if they have many of these diseases, autoimmune, allergies, lymphatic stagnation, thyroid problems, pancreas, and everything else that get blocked up from these chemicals that act as sort of endocrine disruptors or cellular, you know, disruptors from, you know, having the body be able to function. It shuts down certain functions because these chemicals are not recognized. They get stored and they block up energy flow and electrical flow, and they block up the ability of the cells to function optimally. And I feel like many of the diseases that we see today, neurological and endocrinological, as well as, you know, the digestive disorders, are, in my opinion, attributed to the exposure to chemicals in the type of, with the medicines, with the pesticides, and with the beauty products and the food. And so we're swimming in this chemical sea. And for me, one of the greatest things that's ever happened in my life is to become aware of chemicals in the sense of smoking them, drinking them, just snorting them, you know, popping them as pills, injecting them, and eating them, and looking at all, and fluoride in the water, you know, and learning how to go like, how can I avoid as much of these inimical substances as possible? And if we do get exposure, how can I help people to detoxify, which is a very challenging process, to recirculate those chemicals back through the bloodstream. So people are jumping from diet to diet and pill to pill and all this stuff instead of going through the sludgy, slimy detox of chemicals coming out. For example, Paul Bragg, you know, after many years of fasting and raw food, finally a big giant chunk of mercury came out many years into his health program protocol. And finally one day during a fast, he pooped out this huge chunk of thimerosal mercury. And he felt like, oh my God, the final complete healing. Arnold Ehret, same thing. Some of those great men that did the process of regeneration and detoxification, which you hear so little of these days because of the challenge, the discipline that's required, and moving through that junk on the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels is not easy. So health is simple, and the path of detoxification is simple by avoiding the chemicals and detoxifying them, but it is not easy. And I realize that it's getting more and more difficult as time passes because there's becoming more and more chemicals, more and more deception, and more of these, passing these laws that are forcing us to be exposed to chemicals, which is totally insane. But yet we're so chemically dumbed down. And so watching the wagging of the dog while the tail gets away with whatever it wants. So that's why it's important just to keep waking up and coming back to less is more. Like sleep, fresh air, water, pure, plain, basic, unstimulating foods. It's like thousands of years of culture. Well, what about pizza and pasta and all these traditional cultural foods? But the wise one who wants to have a clear head and sleep well at night is going to eat simple, plain, basic food that has not been sprayed or altered. And that's my message. That's why the God put me here, for that little tiny thing to say, hey, it's better to leave all that crap in the middle of the grocery store, the bag boxes and cans built for profit, and go to the farmer's market and, you know, learn how to take those fruits, vegetables, herbs, nuts and seeds and your you know, grass raised animal products and eat them as simply and plainly as you can. So not to use food as a drug or a stimulant, but a tool to fuel your life. Because opinion is that at this time, which is more of a new revelation more than anything, is the food is consciousness. And so it's not about good, bad, or right or wrong. It's just about us learning how to, number one, avoid the stuff that's killing us, which in my estimation is about 95% of the stuff is lifeless, processed, dead, slimy junk. I'm not as much against cooked food as I've made it seem over the years, but I just wanted to really emphasize the fact that for a better part of the year and as much as possible, human beings should pluck and eat. And there's a million reasons why I would recommend that. But then again, I understand all the different variables and all the different, you know, latitude and all the different climates and things like that, and levels of awareness, but just the consciousness of the food. And then we use food to support what it is we're trying to create or be or do. So if you want to have, if you want the warriors to go to war, it's probably better if your soldiers are not fruitarians, because they're just going to be like, well, the hell with this, you know. You got to feed them the stuff that's going to pump them up and get them out there and get them aggressive. Same thing with just the warriors and the CEOs and the movers and the shakers. And then, you know, it's going to be different for someone who's a meditator, a monk. You know, for example, just when you just want to meditate, well, just fruit, plain fruit, and you sit. But that guy, you don't put a gun in his hand. He's been sitting there meditating for 4 years. Now you're going to hand him a gun. He's going to be like, if I shoot that guy, I'm shooting myself. So you need to use food and consciousness and all the different types of food to adjust your life to what you need it to be. So you don't want to be too high, you know?
No. So Dan, you're spot on. And as you're talking, I'm really being grateful because you're bringing up a lot of issues that we need to really look at directly as facts. And detox is really critical. So I'm looking at you and I'm saying, my God, how old is Dan? And look at his skin. You have the skin of a 17-year-old young boy. You have no lines in your forehead. I mean, your skin is like so youthful. So you're walking your walk and talking your talk. And detox is what you've been doing for decades. And that's what people really need to look at. And I teach little by little. You just don't go on a raw diet from your eating meat and cheese and pizzas, you know, and 100% tomorrow. But if you do it little by little, you basically will start allowing the body to start detoxing. And what you're bringing up is really critical, because what's happening is that skin care, hair care, our oral care, dental care, cosmetics, all of these bleaches and dyes, this is really food that people don't say, oh, this is not food, I just wash it off, or, you know, it's just whatever. No, you're ingesting that into your system. It's going down into the bloodstream. It's being absorbed. It's going down into the organs day in and day out, year in and year out. And after a period of time, it's going to basically just settle down and store, because you don't have enough 24-hour enough digestive system. It's going to start storing into our lungs, into our kidneys, into our organs, and that's dis-ease. That's where all the disease is coming from. There's thousands of different names, thousands of different types of cancers, but they all come down to toxicity. We're just toxic, for God's sakes. So if we're doing what you're talking about, Dan, is clearing it out, looking at our diet, looking at what we're doing, where are we living, how are we breathing, what are we drinking. Little by little, we also have to look at detox. And you asked me in the beginning, like, how did I start off? Well, I was doing Jackie Kennedy Onassis. She was my hair client back in the 1960s. And I've written books about this, Awaken Your Roots. It's a free book on morroccomethod.com. You just go into morroccomethod.com, look it up. It's audio and whatever you want to use it. You can get it in the book form, audio form. Awaken Our Roots. And when I was basically working in the most famous, prestigious hair salon in the world in the 1960s, it came like a lightning bolt when I realized that I was healthy, I was clean, I was eating properly, and I was working in the most toxic atmosphere of the most famous and wealthiest salon in the world. And all these people looked fabulous on the outside, but on the inside, they were being poisoned, toxic, from all the bleaches, all the dyes, all the permanents, all these horrible hairsprays, which is paint and lacquer. So when I came to that, I stepped out of that world into the health and wellness world and basically started working on creating the 5 elements. And then how can I help and assist and educate everyone or anyone who's interested into learning, first of all, how to detox. And I will tell everyone that at 76 years of age, I am detoxing now at a higher level than I've ever done in my entire life. And it's day by day. I don't have to stop and say, I'm going to do a liver cleanse. I don't have to stop and say, I'm going to do a lung cleanse. I don't have to do any blood tests. I just had I had to get insurance last year. And so I bought a building, a very expensive manufacturing plant. And I had to go through this huge physical test and by a very big insurance company. And I came out at 23 years of age. That's what they rated me, 23 years of age. And I was then 75. So what I'm alluding to is that when you eat properly, and when you think properly, and when you breathe properly, and when you drink properly, you're going to allow not only your physical body, but your emotional body and your mental body and your spiritual body to detox. And this is a 24/7. What Dan is telling you is fact. It is the truth, and there's no other truth. When you're little by little, we're not telling you to do this all at once, but you start doing it today and tomorrow and next week, little by little, you'll just slowly, like I tell everybody, there's nothing more important to me than my energy. Nothing. There's no food, there's no booze, there's no drugs, there's no sex, there's no outside social life. My energy level is the most important, powerful thing that I live with 24/7. And I range between an 8.5 to a 13. So when I'm normal, I'm pouncing around at a 10, on a 1 to 10. And when I'm in the flow, baby, I'm hitting 13. And my clarity and balance is right on. So detoxing is something that we need to do 24/7. It's not something you sort of put aside, and then the rest of the time you can eat Twinkies and drink diet beer or Coca-Cola or Domino pizza, for God's sake. This is all toxic. But if you're doing that, then slowly by little, and I'm advising everyone, support your local farmers. They're supporting us, for God's sake. Not the big mega, what do you call it, Monsanto? Bayer bought Monsanto? That's another conversation we'll get into later. But the whole thing is, if you support your local farmers, not Costco, that's really horrible. You go down to the local farmers market. If you're in the winter and there's no farmers market, then you need to find out who's producing anything and support them. Everything I eat right now is only from my local environment. I buy nothing from the stores, nothing. I go to the farmer's market. We have 16 a week here in Central California, talking about living in paradise. That's by choice. And everything that they have, whatever they're producing, that's all I eat. I don't go there and say, oh, I want to buy peas. They say peas is out of season. There are no peas. Or I want to buy watermelon. Oh, all right, watermelon's in season. Here's one. But my energy level is, I attribute it, starting with my physical food and the local farmers who I totally support, that support me and my health. Then we go into my associations, my business reactions, all my employees. I don't do business with any major stressful, no one. If they're just in harmony, we basically are in flow with them. If they're not, I don't want to be bothered. So money is important, but it's not everything. And our health is the most important thing on every level. Every level, we need to be healthy in what we're eating, what we're drinking, and what we're thinking, and how we're feeling. That's all food. We need to bring that to fruition. So our health is our wealth. And I'm glad you're bringing that up, Dan, because you're so insightful. Look how healthy you are. Basically, you are walking your walk. Congratulations.